Novgorod the Great. This is how ancient Novgorodians called their city. For the first time, it was mentioned in the chronicles in the year 859. And this means Novgorod is the most ancient Russian city. This is the place Russia springs from. In the 9th century, the Slavs who inhabited the Ilmen Lake shores invited three brothers, Varangians, to reign in their lands. The eldest brother, Rurik, was destined to start the first Russian monarchical dynasty. In memory of these times, in 1862, the year of the Millennium of Russia official celebration, here, in the very center of the Novgorod Kremlin, a stately monument created by Mikhail Mikeshin was mounted. Veliky, an artist, depicted this moment on the painting which he is now famous for. It was the moment when Veliky Novgorod, for a single day, on September the 8th, became the capital of the Russian Empire. It was the day when the monarch Alexander II unveiled the Millennium of Russia monument. Nowadays, everyone can take a delightful look at this impressive canvas exhibited in one of the best museums of the country, which is located in the building formerly housing the Gentry Club. Rurik, the founder of the first monarchical dynasty, appears to be one of the greatest mysteries of Russian history. Halo of secrecy makes him a legendary, almost mythical character. The author of the history of Russia since the most ancient times, one of the most thorough researchers in this branch, wrote, "The call for Varangians to reign was of a crucial importance for Russian history, and it is just to regard this event as our history reference point." This, however, does not belittle the role of the Slavs in the process of building their own state system. Scandinavian yeast allowed Slavonic dough to rise. The future world power started here. Rurik is depicted on the monument as a rough warrior. The way to the Ilmen Lake begins by the walls of the ancient Novgorod Kremlin, down the Volga River. It was on a steep bank of the river where the Varangian arrival had settled down. The age of this place, Veliky Novgorod, is more than 1,000 years. In the vicinity, close to Novgorod ruler's residence, the Church of the Saviour's Transfiguration on Nereditsa was erected. The small church was rich in frescoes. On the First World Arts Exhibition in the middle of the 19th century in Paris, Russia was presented with the frescoes copied from those in the Church of the Saviour's Transfiguration on Nereditsa. It turned to be the highlight of the program. Napoleon III, the Emperor of France, gave an order to strike a medal in memory of this exhibit. A sensational archaeological find was made in the church in the summer of 2001. During restoration, a duke's burial place was discovered. According to the written sources, a duke named Afanasy Danilovich passed away in the age of a bit more than 30 and was buried here in 1322. He was a grandson of Alexander Nevsky and the brother of the Duke of Moscow, Ivan Kalita. The find proves that Spasy Nereditsky Monastery had always been a part of the Rurik original residence territory. Opposite Veliky Novgorod, on the other bank of the Volga River, there is a 20th century cloister. The still functioning monastery reminds of a stately warder in front of the Ilmen Lake gates. This is where the Slavonic Sea opens up before the voyager's eyes. Just the same it was during the times of Russian epic heroes at court, who, according to the legend, had caught the Fish King here. When the weather is calm, the lake's surface reminds a giant mirror, reflecting azure and cumulus clouds. And when it storms, the lake is covered with waves of water and silt. Long time ago, it was a part of the legendary trade waterway from the Varangians to the Greeks, which connected the Baltic and the Black Seas. Along this way, the retinues were moving south to conquer and settle new lands, just like in the song about Prince Oleg, who nailed his shield above the Constantinople's gates and then made Kiev on the Dnieper the capital of his princedom. At those ancient times at Novgorod, a tradition of the treaty between the Duke and the city was established. In the course of time, this tradition became the cornerstone of a unique medieval Novgorod Veche Republic. As a fact, originally, in ancient Russia, almost every gathering of people aiming at discussion of any more or less important matter would be called the Veche, and Novgorod was the first city to transform this spontaneous phenomenon into social and later political institute. It was on the Veche to decide whether to declare war or to bury the hatchet. It also imposed taxes, confirmed treaties, exercised magisterial functions. The Veche could even confiscate one's property. Among the Veche privileges was a right to give the Duke power to reign and the right to dethrone him. For example, the Duke could hunt only in certain places and in certain time, and of course all the financial procedures between the Veche and the Duke were carefully prescribed. And finally, the Veche elected the Posadnik, the head of executive authority, or in modern language, the Republic's Prime Minister. Together with the Posadnik, the Tisitsky was elected. The Tisitsky was a kind of a tribune who combined the functions of the sheriff and the leader of irregular home guard. Before the bill projects were presented to the Veche, they had been given readings in the Council of the Noblemen, some sort of the city legislative assembly. The Archbishop of Novgorod headed the assembly. Despite this fact, the Archbishop was not allowed to attend the Veche unless given a special invitation. And thus, appointment by election principle was a crucial one for Novgorod's political structure. It became a cornerstone of a complicated governing system which protected the city from tyranny for 400 years. This place is called Yaroslavovo Dvoriще after a great Duke Yaroslav the Wise, who granted Novgorod its own Magna Charta. The St. Sophia Cathedral has always been recognized as the heart and soul of Veliky Novgorod. It was founded in 1045 by Yaroslav the Wise. It was erected in only 5 years. A great number of objects of worship are kept here. Here lie the remains of Yaroslav the Wise's wife, Great Duchess Anna, who before marriage was a Scandinavian princess Ingigerd. Their children became queens of great European countries, France, Norway and Hungary. There rest the saint relics of the cathedral founder, Duke Vladimir Yaroslavich. In the 19th century, during restoration of Martyrievskaya vestibule, an ancient fresco Constantine and Elena was found. In this cathedral, people still resort to help of the wonder-working icon, the sign of Our Lady, and to the intercession of the saint, whispering their prayers in front of the iconostasis created way back in the 16th century, during Archbishop Macari's reign. The Saint Sophia keeps lots and lots of historical secrets, which is easy to understand since it is the most ancient cathedral in Russia. There were days when Novgorod Republic treasury was kept here. From its walls, home guard troops and retinue marched to face the enemy in the battle. One of the most heroic episodes of the Russian history. While the Tatars raided Kiev, another menace from the west arose, the Livonian Knights. The time has come for Alexander Nevsky, a young Duke of Novgorod. In the year 1242, the famous battle on the ice took place, where Alexander Nevsky gained a complete victory over the Livonian Knights. This remarkable victory has protected Russia from the Western aggression for years. 700 years later, this deed was depicted in the legendary movie Alexander Nevsky by the great director Sergei Eisenstein.
Идите и скажите всем в чужих краях, что Русь жива. Пусть без страха жалуют к нам в гости, но если кто с мечом к нам войдет, от меча и погибнет. На том стоит и стоять будет русская земля.
Novgorod luckily avoided the Tatar ravage. Hordes of nomads were on their way when they suddenly stopped, when only 100 kilometers separated them from one of the richest cities. It was then when Bati abruptly turned his cavalry back. People still believe that Novgorod was saved by the divine intent and also by the bravery and heroism of those who fought invaders in other big and small towns of Russia. Nowadays, a great cross stands right at the place where Bati turned his horde back. Novgorod is also unique for the fact that it is probably the only place where one can see examples of pre-Tatar invasion culture, such as the St. George Cathedral of the Yuriev Monastery with its frescoes belonging to the 12th century. In the St. Sophia Cathedral one may see the Alexeyevsky Cross, which is dedicated to the victory of the Russian troops over the Gold Horde in the Kulikov battle. In 13th, 14th centuries, Novgorod became a large-scale international port, through which all Russian Western trade was carried out. The main trade partner for Novgorod was the Hanseatic Union. But Novgorod was not only famous for its merchants. Brilliant craftsmen created jewelry, pictorial and architectural masterpieces here. For a long time, Novgorod was a home for the greatest Byzantine artist, Theophan the Greek. One can still see his frescoes in the Church of the Transfiguration on Ilyina Street. Academic Dmitry Likhachev described these magnificent representations as the great epistles of the past, which appealed to the descendants to keep the faith and protect freedom. The Palace of Facets served as a place for official celebrations. In far ben of it, the Archbishop received visitors, and the Council of the Noblemen, which consisted of the most notable citizens, held its sessions. Now in the main hall of the palace there are around 150 displays of the jeweler's art. These masterpieces, created by ancient craftsmen, were brought from the St. Sophia Cathedral sacristy and monasteries of Novgorod, among the treasures of the palace, gifts and donations of Russian dukes and tsars of different times. In the year 1478, the Novgorod Republic was annexed to Moscow. A strong state had risen on Europe's map. It was twice bigger than Moscow used to be before the unification. A dramatic story of the fall of the Republic inspired lots of authors and poets, and the name of Martha Posadnitsa became the symbol of Novgorod's liberty. Throughout the centuries, Novgorod had known lots of bitterness. Tsar Ivan the Terrible, suspecting the city in high treason, inflicted mass repressions on Novgorodians. This is why you cannot find Ivan the Terrible among the greatest statesmen on the Millennium of Russia monument. It is acknowledged that Novgorod was one of the best educated cities of ancient Russia. The first school, the first written book ever, the Astromirova Gospel, are on the list of the things which Novgorod is proud of. Holy Bible was for the first time fully translated into Slavonic language here. Lots of Novgorodians, as well men as women, were in correspondence with each other, using birchbark as paper. Birchbark letters, first discovered in Novgorod in 1951, became archaeological sensation. From the depths of centuries, the voices of our ancestry sounded alive. Novgorod archaeological expedition under the direction of academician Yanin discovered a huge amount of finds, revealing the most mysterious pages of the past. Novgorod is proud of its Museum of Musical Virtues, the only place where one can listen to gusli, the musical instrument which Russian epic hero Sadko used to play.
Инструмент, который наглядно показывает связь всей культуры славян с культурами древнейших цивилизаций, поскольку сам тип уходит в несколько тысячелетий в глубину человеческой истории, вот он показывает начало древнего Новгорода. Вертикальное положение характерно для лирообразных инструментов. Вот это выдающаяся находка для Новгорода, для всей России.
But not only in museums Novgorod keeps up its traditions. They still exist in folk festivals, crafts and in the kitchen. Veliky Novgorod had always been famous for its feasts. Detinets restaurant, located at one of the Kremlin towers, is famous for its ancient recipes cuisine. Its halls for a certain amount of times served as a background for exciting historical movies. Novgorod is an attractive place for tourists from around the globe, and it is worth saying that they can count on real Novgorod hospitality. Among those who decide to visit Novgorod, there are a lot of pilgrims who decided to visit Christian sacred places. Novgorod eparchy of the Russian Orthodox Church has indeed sprung up as if anew. In the year 1991, public worship was recommenced in the most ancient temple of Russia, the St. Sophia Cathedral. And quite recently, the domical cross of the cathedral, thought to have been lost during the Second World War, was returned from Spain. During the Second World War, Novgorod was almost completely demolished. But within a few years, the city had risen from the ashes again. And no doubt, the job performed by the city restorers was a real feat. Owing to their enthusiasm, hundreds of masterpieces belonging to the ancient Russian culture were brought back to life. In 1998, the city had been given back its historical name, Novgorod the Great. In 2009, Novgorod will be celebrating its 1150th birthday. The Days of Hanseatic Union, owing to this anniversary, for the first time in history will be held in Russia, which will surely bring guests from all over Europe and the Baltic states. The city is looking forward to meet the anniversary. Monasteries and churches are being restored. The historical center will change its appearance. An international airport is being built in Krychevitsi to support tourism. A highway from Moscow to St. Petersburg will cross the Novgorod region territory. Entertainment business is developing rapidly. An aqua park is going to be built in the western parts of the city. On the places of ancient settlements, the museums of live history are going to appear. New York Times referred to Novgorod as a sacred area and a giant icon. According to the decree of the President of the Russian Federation, Veliky Novgorod's anniversary will be regarded as a national holiday. Therein lies recognition of Novgorod's role in Russian history, which was remarkably pointed out by academician Dmitry Likhachev. On the very dawn of Russian history, we owe Novgorod the fact that now we are the way we are, that we are Russians. The very same idea, only in rhymes, was expressed by Anna Akhmatova. A calm and peaceful love to this land cannot be subdued, as long as a drop of the Novgorod blood, just like ice in sparkling wine, lives within me.